In 2026, the United States launched one of its largest air campaigns in years. F-22s flew, F-35s flew, F-15E Strike Eagles flew. B-2 bombers and support aircraft were part of the wider operation. But there is no public indication that the Air Force's small F-15EX fleet played a combat role. Then, only weeks later, something unexpected happened. The Air Force more than doubled the F-15EX fleet it plans to buy. The number jumped from 129 aircraft to 267. That sounds backwards. Why buy far more of a fighter that was barely visible in the war that had just happened? The answer starts with a problem the Air Force has been trying to solve for years. It needs more fighter capacity. And it needs that capacity before the next generation is ready. The F-15EX Eagle II looks familiar for a reason. Its basic shape comes from a fighter that first flew more than 50 years ago. But the story of the F-15 has never really been about age. It has been about how much room the original design left for growth. The first Eagles were built during the Cold War for air superiority. Then the F-15E Strike Eagle turned the design into a powerful long-range strike aircraft. Export versions added newer sensors, computers, weapons, and electronic warfare systems. By the time the F-15EX appeared, the old silhouette was carrying an almost completely new digital backbone. That matters because the Air Force did not choose the Eagle II out of nostalgia. It chose it because the production base, training culture, and decades of F-15 experience already existed. That can reduce the time and risk required to field capability. And time has become one of the Air Force's biggest problems. The older F-15C and F-15D fleets were already aging out. The F-15E fleet is aging too. At the same time, the F-22 fleet is far smaller than originally envisioned. And the F-35 was never designed to replace every mission performed by every older fighter. That is where the F-15EX begins to make sense. It is not a stealth fighter. It does not try to be one. Instead, it combines a large airframe with modern avionics, digital flight controls, electronic warfare, and open architecture. The shape is old, the systems are not. One of the most important changes is digital fly-by-wire flight control. Another is the aircraft's modern radar and mission computer. It also carries the EPOS electronic warfare suite. Because the Eagle II is not stealthy, electronic warfare matters much more to its survivability. The aircraft has to detect threats, understand them, and operate as part of a larger network. That is a very different philosophy from hiding inside a stealth envelope. And that difference is exactly why comparing the F-15EX directly with the F-35 can be misleading. They solve different problems. Stealth gives the F-35 advantages in highly contested environments. The F-15EX offers payload, range, weapons capacity, and a large airframe that can keep evolving. The Air Force is not choosing one and abandoning the other. It is trying to build a force that has both. And then came Operation Epic Fury. The campaign against Iran showed what sustained air operations can demand. Aircraft have to fly repeatedly. Maintenance crews have to keep them ready. Tankers, bases, logistics, and munitions have to keep pace. More than 13,000 targets over more than 5 weeks create a capacity problem, not just a technology problem. That does not mean the Iran campaign alone caused the F-15EX expansion. The evidence does not support that claim. But the campaign offered a vivid example of why depth matters. A fighter force has to be large enough to train, deploy, rotate, recover, and still remain ready. By the spring of 2026, the Air Force had only about 24 F-15EXs in its inventory. That is still a fleet being built. It is not yet a force large enough to carry a major share of a sustained air campaign. That helps explain why the Eagle II could remain mostly outside the public picture of Epic Fury without the program being considered a failure. The aircraft simply had not reached meaningful mass yet, and that brings us back to 267. The Air Force's plan is no longer just about replacing old F-15C and F-15D aircraft. A larger F-15EX fleet can also begin replacing aging F-15E Strike Eagles. That makes the program much more important to the future fighter force. But there is another reason the number increased. Air Force officials have said delays in F-35 modernization were one factor behind the decision to buy more F-15EXs. That is a crucial part of the story. The Air Force is still investing heavily in the F-35. It is also investing in the future F-47. But those programs do not erase the need for aircraft that can be fielded and sustained now. The Eagle II helps fill that gap. Not because the future failed, but because getting to the future takes time. And time is not the only constraint. Production is another. The F-15EX program has already faced delivery delays. A Boeing strike in 2025 added more pressure to the schedule. Air Force officials have also said production has not yet reached the pace they ultimately want. That creates a simple problem. Planning for 267 aircraft is one thing. Building them fast enough is another. The 2027 budget request shows how seriously the Air Force is treating the program. It asks for 24 additional F-15EX aircraft. The request is worth roughly $3 billion. That does not mean 267 jets were suddenly purchased in one giant order. It means the Air Force now plans a much larger fleet and is asking Congress to fund that growth year by year. The same budget also points to another lesson from modern air warfare. Munitions matter. Aircraft capacity means very little if the force cannot keep enough weapons available for sustained operations. That is why the broader budget picture matters just as much as the fighter itself. The F-15EX is part of a larger capacity problem. More aircraft, more weapons, more maintenance, more training, more production, and more ability to stay in the fight over time. This is also why the Eagle II should not be treated as a replacement for stealth. In the densest air defense environments, a non-stealth fighter faces real limitations. The F-15EX does not magically erase those limitations. Its value comes from doing the jobs it is actually built to do. Carry a large weapons load, operate over long distances, connect to a wider network, support the force where stealth is not the only requirement, and be available in meaningful numbers. That may be the real lesson behind the Air Force's new plan. The future of American air power may not depend on one perfect fighter. It may depend on combining different aircraft that solve different problems. The F-35 brings stealth and sensors. The F-15EX brings capacity and payload. The F-47 is meant to push the next generation even further. Together, those programs reflect a force trying to balance what it needs tomorrow with what it can field today. The F-15EX may be the strangest kind of modern fighter. It is built around an idea that is more than half a century old. Yet the problem it is being asked to solve is completely modern. America needs enough combat aircraft to train, deploy, recover, and remain ready at the same time. That is why the planned fleet grew from 129 to 267. Not because old technology suddenly defeated the future, because capacity became harder to ignore. So what do you think matters more for the future of American air power? The most advanced fighter possible, or enough capable fighters to stay ready when they are needed? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy clear, fact-based coverage of military aviation and defense technology, hit the like button and subscribe to Defense TV. There is a lot more coming.